Really glad you're here. Whether you're watching, welcome everyone. Whether you're here watching us live or you're watching the recording, we're really glad you're here.
Yes,
We're Mary Denise and Candace May, your guides for reframing your life, digging the gold from your past and designing the life of your future. Welcome to Unshackle Your Voice, where you can be seen and heard with confidence. I'm Candace May, owner of Candace May Training and Services, where I guide companies in raising their level of effectiveness with employees and leaders through collaboration skills, communication, to improve employee engagement and achieve greater results. Mary Denise, would you like to?
Yes, hi, I'm Mary Denise, and I am the owner of, Mitchell Leadership Services and Consulting, where I help people take their next steps after workplace bullying has happened to them.
Work-based bullying. Boy, I've experienced that.
Yep. So, and one of the really cool things that really brings Candace and I together is the fact that we are both certified speakers, trainers, and coaches with the John Maxwell team. We're both empowered mentoring guides. And we are both, my favorite part, DISC Human Certified Behavior Consultants.
That's right. We love helping people grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's individuals, teams, and everyone's a leader. So especially those in senior management positions and ownership. Yeah, it's a great thing.
So today is the first day of July 2020. It is so hard to believe that we are already in July. There are only 5 months left in the year. And my favorite time of the year is actually the 4th of July. Those amazing abilities to do the barbecues outside, playing with the Frisbees and just sitting back and watching the fireworks and doing all of that really fun stuff. So we thought that today we would dedicate our show towards things dealing with independence. And it's going to be an amazing discussion because we're going to talk to you about what it means to be in being independent as well as being codependent and a few other tidbits of information.
Yeah. How about that? Mm-hmm. It's going to be a great conversation. 4th of July, independence. We became an independent country, right? How do we define independence? Let's begin our conversation right there. So I have written down some descriptions. I just want to read them. Independence is defined as free from outside control, not depending on another's authority, not depending on another for livelihood or sustenance. What do you think of that definition, Mary?
I think that's a good definition because when you're independent, that means that you're able to do things freely. You know, your free will is tested and you get to make your own choices and you get to do the things that you want to do. You don't have to live according to somebody else's rules to where they have designed your life for you. And so I love that feeling of independence and being able to decide what I'm going to do with each and every day of my life. If I choose to just lounge all day and binge watch one of the many streaming services that we have access to, by golly, I want to be able to do that. And if all I want to do is eat a box of Tony the Tiger's, they're great Frosted Flakes all day long, then so be it.
That's right. Have fun. Do whatever you want. Who's going to hold you accountable, right?
Exactly. That's one of the drawbacks. Yeah, that's one of the drawbacks, though, to being independent sometimes, though, right? Because you don't have somebody to hold you accountable.
Exactly. It's independence is American as apple pie, right? Yeah, we always have that phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, be independent, you know, and we always think positive about independence, don't we? But what happens if we take our independence too far? Anything taken too far becomes a weakness, right? So if we take independence too far and I say, I'm independent, I don't need anybody else, I don't need a partner, I don't need anybody to help me financially, I don't need anybody to help me around the house, I can carry the hammer, I can carry the ladder, whatever it might be. Right? I can do the cooking, even if you're a man, I can do that. I don't need anybody else. I'm independent. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a solopreneur. One's too small a number to make a difference. We need to team up with other people and really have a higher impact and find people to leverage, whether they're employees with us, coworkers with us, or partners that we're leveraging, right? Because to be really independent, it limits us. We become isolated. What happens when you become isolated? Your thinking gets narrower and narrower. And what happens? You become an island? Are we meant to be an island?
No, we're not meant to be an island. And unfortunately, given our current situation with world events, a lot of us are pretty much having to live on our own little islands.
With a stay-at-home mandate. Social distancing, not really. Social distancing is separating physically, but we're still staying, hopefully we're staying connected emotionally and socially through things such as this, Zoom and the telephone, texting, emails, all of the technology tools, right? Because we're not made to be alone. Because those people who isolate and they totally shut themselves down, they get stir crazy. They can't connect, they can't communicate. Your mind starts to go into a circle.
Well, that's when you run into the, oh, I'm sorry, is there an echo?
No.
That's when you run into the whole cabin fever thing, right? You've been cooped up all day long. And I remember when I first lived in Alaska, everybody warned me about cabin fever. You're going to have cabin fever by February. I was like, oh, I'll be fine, because in Alaska, when we first got there, it was negative 60 degrees. Okay. And it's like that for a long time in the wintertime, for many, many months in a row. And so, come February, you're itching to get out of the house and you're itching to be out in public with other people and, be able to see their eyes. Because normally we're all bundled up and we're head to toe.
Isn't it dark 24 hours also?
Yeah, that would be Barrow during the winter months. But where we lived, I would say there was about 4 hours of daylight a day in the wintertime.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. And so being in this situation now, it's that cabin fever. We're experiencing that now because of these stay-at-home mandates that we've had to follow. And then those of us that haven't followed it, and have eagerly jumped out to socialize and be with others and be able to exercise their independent rights. That's what I keep hearing. It's my right to do this. Yep, it absolutely is your right to do that. But it's also my right to protect myself and, not get sick type situation. And I've had too many experiences late where I have come very close I've had to get tested for COVID because of being exposed to other people. So that independent is a good thing, but that cabin fever, man, that's what keeps you from wanting to.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you from wanting to do things, right? You want to be around other people and you don't want to be that person that has nobody,
right.
You're just there. You're just there all day.
It's always good to have a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely want a balance. So independence taken too far becomes a weakness, right? We become isolated and it's not really healthy. But what about just being dependent? We don't want to be totally dependent, but there are exceptions where people are dependent, right? When they're like a child or maybe somebody who's extremely ill, right? Those things create dependence, right?
Well, and when you look at what dependence is, it's two people, right? Two people relying on each other. And it's
one definitely relying on the other.
So when you've got that dependency, look at the infants, right? Infants are born, they can't protect themselves, they can't change their own diaper, they can't feed themselves. So they're dependent on their parents or a caregiver to do all of that for them.
That's a great.
And as we get older, as the child ages, we start to lose some of that, we're dependent. I mean, I can remember my grandchildren, they all live with me and they're all asserting their own levels of independence where, I can do that. No, I want to try that type situation. And then, you get to the teenage years and you start really understanding what it means to not have to depend on somebody else. And then you become an adult, right?
You become an adult and hopefully you've learned a little bit of independence so that you can function in the world, right? And you're not dependent on your parents anymore.
Exactly. Well, because we're also, but we may not be reliant on our parents as much anymore, but now we're reliant on the educational system to educate us because we're in college. We're dependent on an employer to give us a paycheck and our health insurance or whatever. We are dependent on other people and other things at various times of our lives.
But then that brings me to the term codependent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about codependency. Way back in my 20s, I didn't even know what codependency meant. So let me read the definition.
Mm-hmm.
Codependent is defined as excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, mm-hmm. typically one who requires support on an account of an illness or an addiction. Both people need each other in an extreme amount, unhealthy amount. The ill person or addict needs someone to take care of them, and the caregiver has an unhealthy need to be needed. The caregiver enables the addict in their sickness, keeping them dependent on him. The caregiver would not be able to function without someone needing their constant attention. So you have an addict and you have a caregiver. And I'm not talking about a healthy caregiver as a nurse who's providing autonomous care. I'm talking about somebody who really needs to be needed. They get into having to fix the addict, everything for the addict. And then at that point, the addict's not responsible for anything. They can make all the mistakes in the world because this other person is going to rescue them constantly.
Well, and that's when we run into the situations where people then start trying to do intervention techniques, right? Because that person is so codependent, and they have to have them. They can't do anything without that person, that you end up doing this intervention to try to get them to wake up and realize that, look, there's a problem here. We need to fix it. And so, I can remember a couple of people when I worked as an advocate for abused women, the codependency, it was unreal. They knew they were in a bad relationship. They knew that it was not healthy, not safe, but they chose to continue to stay in there because they were like, but I need him. I need him in order to survive, because who's going to want me type situation. And it always broke my heart when I dealt with all that codependency on some of these abused women.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because they need to feel they're taken care of, and the other person feels a need to. It's mutual. I mean, they're so intertwined. It's enmeshed. They don't know their identity apart from the other person. Mm-hmm. So in the situation you're describing, the woman, if she's the abused one, would in that case feel very much, I don't know who I am without the other person, mm-hmm. right? I can't be happy without the other person. Mm-hmm. But it can get into, instead of just abuse, it can get into drug addiction or alcohol. Mm-hmm. You see that a lot in Alcohol and Anonymous, or the families of alcoholics who go in for support. Sometimes we see the addict has the problem, mm-hmm. and we say, oh, this addict is the problem. They've got all this drinking or all this alcohol. But when you really pull the two apart, sometimes it's the family member who's more sick than the addict, because they're in the addict's face. They're in there trying to fix everything, and they're making everything bigger and explosive. It's really wild. So codependency is unhealthy. We really want to avoid the codependency, right?
Absolutely.
So then that brings us to a fourth term, interdependence. Interdependence is healthy. Interdependence is a mutual dependence between two things. If you study biology, you'll discover that there's a great deal of interdependence between plants and animals. Inter means between. So interdependence is dependence between two things. The second definition is an interdependent relationship is where both partners are mutually reliant on each other. This makes me think of, it's safe bond where partners can rely on each other, but also maintain autonomous identity. And that's what we really need, that autonomous identity. So each person can be healthy, have their own identity, have their own activities, and then come together and join to benefit each other. And the third definition on this one goes, the definition of interdependence is people, animals, organizations, or things depending on each other. A relationship between a manager and his employees is an example of interdependence. I also like to think of like an albacore or some sea animal. Oftentimes they have microscopic animals that are hanging out on their shells, right? That is a symbiotic kind of interdependent, right? Because they're both benefiting, right?
Well, and you look at too, when you look at interdependent people, the interdependent person, they recognize the value of being vulnerable, and they're able to turn to their partner, in meaningful ways to create that emotional bond. We all need that emotional connection, that emotional bond. And so when an interdependent person, recognizes that it's okay to be vulnerable. I remember when I was married, I was married for a long time. He was my person since I was 15. I could go to him about anything, talk to him about anything. But yes, then you start to see, you grow apart, right? You just kind of start to grow apart because you start realizing that you're not growing in the same direction. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your relationships, but it's an interesting phenomenon. Right?
It is an interesting phenomenon, and that has happened to me. In fact, I've been married more than once, and that I am so focused on personal growth and becoming my best self. I try to grow every day, and the best thing I can describe is when two people get together, they're usually something in common. They're pretty maybe on a same level of growth or something that's drawn them together. But then if one person is growing every day and migrating, right, every day, pretty soon they're a whole new person. And it's not like with years of growth for them to change, because if they're growing every day, we're talking months, 3 months later, they're like shedded all the skin. They're a whole new person. And then if there's somebody who isn't growing, or maybe they're just growing just a little bit every year, you can see how the paths would separate, right? And so now we no longer serve each other. It's better to go the other way. So that comes into mind about safe people. I have this book. It's Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend, Safe People. And those definitions I got were from Safe People. I love their material. They're really famous for the book's boundaries. So the boundaries in dating, boundaries in marriage, boundaries in parenthood.
I just heard about that book earlier today, Boundaries, in a mastermind that I was in earlier. Somebody mentioned you should read the book Boundaries. I was like, wow, I've never heard of that book.
Oh, I have a book. I have a whole bookshelf of all of their material.
Nice.
I went to a ultimate leadership retreat years ago, back in the early 2000s with them, and it was life changing. So their material is solid. I love to use it in my trainings. And they define a safe person as a safe person does three things. But first of all, let's say this. We've got safe people and we've got unsafe people or toxic people. So sometimes you talked about abusive relationships. That would be a toxic person, not a very safe person, right? Sometimes we get dependent and we need a boyfriend or we need a girlfriend. We don't want to be alone. And so sometimes we're attracted to just anybody is better than nobody. But I want to caution people that as you're learning to be not independent and not codependent, but interdependent and have an autonomous personality, that you learn to identify what a safe person looks like and that you surround yourself with safe people. There are a lot of safe people in the world. There are people who are mean and toxic and hurtful. But there's also safe people. You just need to learn what they look like and you need to find them. So a safe person is defined as a person who does three things. First, they draw us closer to God. Second, they draw us closer to other people. And third, they help us become the real person God intended us to be. This is really interesting because they draw us closer to God because God's our creator and we have a natural yearning inside of us for something, and that was built within us by design to call us to find God. The second is to draw us to other people. We need other people. Women need girlfriends, men need guy friends. We need this outside interaction to make us better. And if we're just only with one person as a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend all the time, there's no wiggle room. I mean, it gets static and you can't really breathe. So that's where you have to be careful of getting enmeshed. I had a husband one time who would say, Candace, you should go ahead and have lots of friends, and do all kinds of activities. And I said, great, love that. And I love to do things with him. And he tended to be a little bit of a workaholic. So we did things, but sometimes it would be a stretch. So I would arrange outings with some girlfriends and let him know, hey, I put this on my calendar, I'm going to go. And he'd say, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. 2 weeks out. And then like the day of the event that I'm getting ready to go with my girlfriends, he'd say, oh, I wanted to know, I'm going to go do this. And I thought it'd be great if you could come with me. And I would just be like, really? Really? I've been waiting months to do that with you. But, I already have something on my calendar with my girlfriend. Now, I'll tell you, early years ago, I would have canceled with my girlfriends to hang out with him. But then I realized that's really not healthy and it's not safe. And I'm reinforcing his behavior of not honoring me and my girlfriends and my schedule or my autonomous. So he was verbally saying, yes, be autonomous and have lots of friends. But in reality, he wasn't practicing that at all. He was really trying to confine and isolate me.
Well, it's good that you were able to recognize that because you weren't willing to compromise who you were or your value systems. By honoring the commitment that you made with your girlfriends, that was amazing. Because a lot of times we will typically just be like, okay, and we'll pick up the phone. Hey, I can't come. Sorry. Maybe we'll do something next week. Da 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 da. And that's how we end up losing relationships, right? We end up losing those connections because we constantly cancel on people.
And our friends feel devalued. I don't matter to you. You're not showing up for me. Yep. You keep putting him first and on a platform. Like, what is that all about?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's something that I wish more, especially women, because I think it's, I can only speak from a woman's perspective. I've never been in a man's head. And I don't know that I would want to be in a man's head. You ever watch that movie, What a Man Thinks, with Taji, I can't think of her name, but she's the actress on Empire. She did that movie, What a Man Thinks. It is a hilarious movie, but I tell you what, I would not want to know being a man's brain. So speaking as a woman and a woman of faith, I think a lot of times as women, we become, I don't know, I don't want to use the word submissive, but that's the only thing that I can think of right now, because we tend to be like, okay, well, I was raised to do certain things, right? The Bible says that the man is the head of the house. You do what the man says and da 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 da. So it's like, you don't want to upset the apple cart in the home. You want to keep everything happy and all happy. But when you can finally realize that, you know what, no, this isn't right. Something's got to give, because this is not who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to have a circle of people that are around me to nurture me and help me and do some of the things that I need help with. Because, I admire those relationships where, you read about the man and the woman, they died holding hands. Like those are some amazing relationships. But you wonder, what did they go through? Like, how often did they compromise who they were? Did they compromise their value systems? I would venture to say no if they made it that far.
Yeah, and it seemed like they usually had a healthy boundary, the ones I've heard and stories of, and where they had very much strong autonomous identities and did their own thing, but they came together, and when they were together, they could celebrate each other, and they really enjoy each other, and they could help each other grow to be the best person they could be. They encouraged them to grow in their faith with God, and they developed their faith together. It's pretty powerful. In fact, the Bible actually even says this. It honors these three definitions of a safe person. It says the Bible refers to these three areas of spiritual growth. 1, we fulfill the greatest commandment to love God, Matthew 22:37-38. 2, we keep the second commandment to love each other, which is in Mark 22:39. And 3, we grow into the particular person God created us to be, accomplishing the task He has designed for us. Ephesians 2:10. If you can accomplish all of those things, and the person that you're with can accomplish all those things, you probably have a good, healthy relationship. At least looks that way, right?
Yeah. Earlier when we were talking about this subject, we talked we talked about, where do we find our safe person, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked about, well, if you're in the right environment, things that help you to grow. You go to conferences X number of times a year, but the person that you found is only like maybe once or twice a year. Are they really on the same lit playing field, or are you meeting the person out at the local bar, or
Right.
where are you meeting them to where you're not
Yeah.
able to just figure things out and move further up and everything. So safe people, it's important to have those safe people in our lives. It's definitely safe. It's very important.
They have a description of a safe person. It says, a safe person accepts me just like I am, loves me no matter how I am being or what I do. A person whose influence develops my ability to love and be responsible. Someone who gives me an opportunity to grow. Someone who increases love within me, right? You love yourself, and it's increasing. I can be myself around them. I'm not criticized or condemned. Allows me to be on the outside who I am on the inside. Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah, it does.
Helps me to deny myself for others and for God, because we don't want to be self-absorbed, right? It encourages us to help and focus on others. Someone whose life touches mine and leaves me better for it. Love that.
That is beautiful.
And they draw me closer to God, who has created me, and someone who helps me be like Christ, and someone who helps me love others more. Now,
Wow.
that is a beautiful, safe person.
It is. My grandmother, she used to say, every pot has a lid.
That's great. I've never heard that phrase.
Yeah. And when I think back on that, when I first heard it, I just thought she was talking about the typical pot and the pan, you got to fit the lid to the pan and all this other stuff. But then I realized it works the same in a relationship, right? You can find every pot does have a lid, which means that each and every one of us, God designed us for a person or for a purpose, and he has that person for us, whether we have found them or not. That pot and that lid, eventually we're going to connect. So I'm waiting for my lid. Unless I'm the pot, then I'm waiting for my pot. I don't know.
There you go. Well, I think when I was in my 20s, I didn't necessarily grow up. My parents were married over 30 years, but they didn't have a healthy relationship. So I didn't have that modeled for me. Yeah. So I had to do a whole lot of studying and a whole lot of trial and error to figure out how to be my best person and what to bring to a relationship. And I think I've got that down pretty well. But when I was younger, I thought marriage was a contract. You take out the trash and I'll do the cooking. We'll come together in the bedroom and have a great time. That was it, really. Maybe we share some finances, right?
That's a typical thought process. I was in the same boat. I didn't have role models for what marriage was supposed to look like. So my idea of what a marriage was supposed to look like came from Wally and from Wally's parents. What is it, June and
the Beavers?
The Beavers. Yeah, June and what was his name?
Great though.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so that's what marriage is about. Not really.
Well, I don't know. I thought they were a pretty good family. She cooked all the time and he went to work and they always had great conversations. Or the Brady Bunch. How about the Brady Bunch?
Oh, yeah, the Brady Bunch.
The Partridge Family.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Talk about some relationships right there.
Yeah.
I don't know, people, do you have somebody like that in your life?
No, I actually, at the moment, I'm single. I'm focused on getting my business up and running full-fledged. And I've been through a transition. I'm an empty nester at this point. So the last few years have been, my kids growing. My son got married. He's my youngest. He's 20. He'll be 21 this month.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and he's already married. He got married last June of 2019. Nice. So, and then I have a 23-year-old, and then I have a 35-year-old and 3 grandchildren. So I've got like 2 separate groups, and I'm just now coming into my life, right? I've done all the responsibility of raising and focusing and putting all of my energy into my spouse and all of that. But now it's my time to develop my company and develop and blossom into my full purpose. Though I will be honest, my full purpose is really to find my soulmate, my lifelong love, who would join me in my business, who would want to help others grow and speak and travel the world and really engage in all of this at a great level. So I believe if that's what God wants, that's what will happen. I have a very strong vision. I know it'll happen. But I watch Hallmark movies and I still cry thinking, oh, that's so great. Right?
Yeah.
How about you?
No, my son and I actually just had this conversation over text. So I just learned something. For all of you that don't know this, but you probably do, so have a great laugh. Please do, because I laughed completely when I realized it. There's a little arrow on Instagram that always had a little red dot. Well, I just assumed that meant that there was a video out there that somebody posted and they wanted me to go look at it. So I never clicked on it. Well, because I'm the same way, rebuilding my business and trying to really develop it and make it go, I'm really trying to learn the social media stuff. So I clicked on it and oh my God, there was messages in there from like 3 months ago that I had no idea, had never responded to.
Wow.
Like, oh,
I better go check my Instagram.
That's what that means. So in it, my son had written, and this was back in, I want to say April or May that he wrote it. He sent me this link to an app for social dating during COVID.
That's funny.
So my kids feel that because I've been divorced for over, 9 years now, actually single for 10, but only divorced 9, that it was time for me to go out and start dating. And so I messaged him back and I said, baby, thank you. I appreciate this. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm okay being single, and I'm okay being single for the rest of my life if that's what it takes. Because I just want to be able to serve people, and my ultimate goal and my ultimate dream is to open at least 10 housing communities across the world that will help people that suffer some kind of a catastrophe or are dealing with some kind of a situation to be able to rebuild their lives. So without any worries or stress and things like that. So for right now, that is what I am focused on. So I'm not really looking to
That's a wonderful
relationship. And plus I have an adult son who is 30. I always get their ages mixed up. I have one that's 32, one that's 30, and then I have my daughter that's 26. The 26-year-old is married. Well, they're all married. The 26-year-old lives with me. Her and her family live with me. So I have 3 of my grandkids that are here. Plus I've got a new one on the way. I'm super excited.
Oh, how exciting.
And then I have 5 grandkids that live in Alaska. So I'm like, I've got all the love that I need in this world.
Wow.
I don't need to go out looking for something if I'm not really, it'll happen. God will put that person in my path when the time comes.
So you're saying you're open to it. You're not saying no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Yeah. But I'm not seeking. I mean, I'm not going out of my way to find anybody. But if I don't know how to fit it in right now. I do talk to some wonderful people. I have connections around the world. And so it's been fun to connect with people and have a conversation. But I have to say, I'm a little skeptical of meeting somebody I don't know in person over like Facebook or something and trying to have a social conversation, especially if they're far away, because they may not be who they say they are. I mean, that has happened to me. I have gotten into a relationship with somebody and really liked them, thought this person, there's a really nice connection here. And then, talk on the phone or something. And it's like the picture and the voice and no, this isn't right. So I'm kind of hesitant. I think we have to use a little bit of discretion there. I would pick up the phone really fast right away to see if everything connects and check it out before I got involved, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've enjoyed this conversation, and I like the way we were able to tie the independent to our independence with our national holiday. And just for those of you that, might not have all of your historical facts together on why 4th of July is here. I honor 4th of July because it's a very special time for me. I really make it a point to honor all the soldiers, all the service members in all branches of the military, because they sacrifice so much. They sacrifice time with their families. They sacrifice their health. They sacrifice their finances. I mean, they sacrifice so much to give us the ability to have the freedoms that we're afforded, and to be able to have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And if it wasn't for our service members in all branches of the military, we would not have the ability to do some of the things that we do in the United States. So that's my little tribute to our soldiers. I mean, I was a military wife for 28 years, so soldiers will always, always be, in my heart. So 4th of July, it's been a federal holiday in the United States since 1941. But the tradition of the celebrations goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, a historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. From 1776 to the present day, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence, with festivities ranging from fireworks, parades, and concerts to more casual family gatherings and barbecues. So,
barbecues. It's always barbecues.
And apple pie.
Barbecues.
And apple pie.
And
so, it's going to be interesting to see how we all end up celebrating the 4th of July, because, so I'm going to go on a teeny little tangent here. Please, if you're going to go out and celebrate the 4th of July at any place that is celebrating it, please wear your mask.
It's required in California. They've reinforced it.
Please wear, well, they say it's mandatory here in Arizona, but people don't do it. People have this mindset of, it's my right to do what I want to do. Yes, absolutely. But if you're going to go participate in the fireworks at your local community and you're going to be sitting on the blankets and stuff, please subscribe to social distancing. Please wear your mask. Please take your hand sanitizer. Let's keep ourselves safe. This is not a me situation. This is a we situation. We all have to work together in order to combat this virus. So don't think of the me, think of the we as a totality, because we are all responsible for ourselves and for our neighbors and our friends. So please be safe this holiday season, or not holiday season, but this 4th of July. Be smart, drink responsibly, and mask responsibly.
And mask responsibly. Wash your hands.
Yes.
Wash the counters. Great. Thanks, Mary Denise. I really enjoyed being with you this week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.